Born Alvin Morris on December 25, 1913, Tony Martin was a pop singer and actor whose career spanned over 7 decades. Between the late 30s and mid-50s, he scored dozens of hit singles with songs like I Love Paris, Strangers in Paradise, I Get Ideas, and Walk Hand in Hand. He's remembered for being one of the most beloved crooners of his day. He had a smooth baritone voice and handsome looks to suit. While he might not have been as popular as some of his contemporaries like Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, and Dean Martin, he still left his mark on the music industry in a big way and is credited with helping popularize the big band and jazz standards music genres of the time. As an actor, he starred in hit films like Follow the Fleet, The Holy Terror, The Big Store, and Clash by Night. In the latter's soundtrack, he can be heard singing the song I Hear a Rhapsody. Though he experienced much success throughout his career, Tony experienced his fair share of struggle and strife as well. He passed away in 2012, but just a year prior, in 2011, his son Tony Martin Jr. passed away after being severely injured in a car accident. 3 years before that, his beloved wife of 60 years, Sid Charisse, died of a heart attack at age 86. In this video, we'll take a look at the life and death of both Tony Martin and his son. While younger viewers might not be that familiar with him, Martin was one of the biggest names in the entertainment industry back in the day. Facts Verse presents the tragic deaths of Tony Martin and his son, Tony Martin Jr. A life of accomplishments. Tony Martin was born to immigrant parents, Hattie and Edward Clarence Morris. His family hailed from Eastern Europe and were Jewish. He was born in San Francisco and raised in Oakland. At age 10, Tony was given a saxophone as a present from his grandmother. While attending Oakland High School, Martin was a member of the Glee Club. He went on to develop his love for music by becoming an instrumentalist and singer. Not only did he learn how to play the sax, but he also picked up clarinet as well. He formed his first band, the Red Peppers, while in high school. From there, he joined the band of a local orchestra leader named Tom Guerin. With Guerin's band, Martin played the sax, sitting behind another future musical legend, bandleader Woody Herman. After graduating high school, Martin attended St. Mary's College in Moraga, California. After that, he left Guerin's band and made his way to Hollywood to take a stab at acting. It was around this time that he dropped his birth name and adopted the Tony Martin stage name. On the radio, Martin sang and emceed for the CBS program Tune Up Time with Andre Kostelanetz. NBC gave him his own 15-minute variety program called The Tony Martin Show, which aired from 1954 to 56, right before the evening newscast. One of his guests on that show was a young Dinah Shore. She later starred in her own hour-long NBC variety show. George Burns and Gracie Allen invited Martin on their radio program as a featured vocalist. Allen was heard playfully flirting with Tony while threatening to fire him in a tongue-in-cheek fashion. After paying his dues on the radio, Martin was cast in a number of bit parts in feature films like 1936's Follow the Fleet. In that film, he shared the screen with Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. He eventually landed contracts with MGM and 20th Century Fox. After appearing in several musicals, he received top billing with the Marx Brothers in their final film with MGM, The Big Store. He performed his song Tenement Symphony. In 1942, Martin joined the Navy as a chief specialist. He ended up being dismissed from service, however, a year later for unfitness after he testified at the court-martial of one of his fellow officers. Apparently, he'd been enlisted after the officer failed twice to obtain a commission for him. In the trial, Martin said he bribed the officer by giving him a car worth $950 to facilitate his enlistment. After leaving the Navy, Martin was drafted into the Army and assigned to the Army Air Forces. He was then assigned to Captain Glenn Miller's unit upon Glenn's request. Reportedly, Miller considered Tony to be the best singer in the armed forces. Martin later was promoted to sergeant in the Air Transport Command. He was stationed in India, where he was put to work as an entertainer. He formed a talent troupe that would travel around the various bases in the region performing. After World War II ended, Martin signed a record deal with Mercury Records, who at the time were just a small indie label out of Chicago. He went on to cut 25 records between 1946 and 47, including his hit record To Each His Own. The album was awarded a gold disc by the RIAA and sold more than 1 million copies. After finding success with To Each His Own, Martin signed with RCA Victor after satisfying his contractual obligations with Mercury. Throughout the remainder of the 40s and into the 50s, Martin continued to appear in film musicals. By 1958, he'd become the highest-paid performer in Las Vegas. Reportedly, after signing a 5-year deal with the Desert Inn, he was earning a cool $25,000 a week. In the 1960s, Martin recorded for Motown Records, scoring a major hit with the record Talkin' to Your Picture. By the 70s, 70s, however, his musical career had begun to wane. During this decade, he was most notably a TV spokesperson for the Lady Bravoni brand of pantyhose. Martin spent the remainder of his life married to actress and dancer Sid Charisse. She passed away in 2008, and 4 years later, Martin died of natural causes July 27, 2012, at age 98. The death of Tony Martin Jr. Tony Martin Jr. was born August 28, 1950. On October 31, 2008, he was driving north on I-5 in California, presumably on his way home from work. He had just passed the Templin Highway interchange when he lost control of the vehicle and veered abruptly towards what should have been a guardrail. Unfortunately, the section of guardrail that he would have hit had been destroyed a week prior in another accident. As such, his car plummeted off the embankment and rolled several times before coming to an abrupt halt. Tony was seriously hurt in the accident. His injuries included a broken pelvis, broken knee, and severe cranial fractures. He spent 5 weeks in the hospital in a coma before awakening. Following the accident, his mental faculties were discovered to have been diminished to that of a 5-year-old child. Tony Jr.'s wife, Liv Lindelin Martin, ended up suing the state of California in 2006, but the state maintained there hadn't been enough time to repair the guardrail in the week since its original damage and removal, as at the time all available Caltrans employees were handling wildfires. They further maintained even if the guardrail had been in place, it likely wouldn't have saved Tony Martin Jr. from his injuries, and that the accident was his fault and not caused by road conditions. The state of California lost the case. Martin was awarded with $893,000 in damages and a further $9.2 million in future damages since Tony required around-the-clock care. Sadly, Tony Martin Jr. died April 10, 2011. His father died a little over a year later in 2012. Following their deaths, Liv Martin sold the Martin estate and moved back to her home in Norway. It's heartbreaking to learn the details of Tony Martin Jr.'s death. Perhaps this death led to the passing of his father a year later. At that point, Tony Martin Sr. had lost just about everyone he loved. Now it's time to hear from you. Did you know Tony Martin was not only a successful singer, but also an accomplished film star? Let us know in the comments section below.